Hello and welcome to Material Girls, a pop culture podcast that uses critical theory to understand the zeitgeist. I'm Hannah McGregor.
And I'm Marcelle Cosman. Now, listeners can't tell, but Hannah and I are actually cloaked and standing in a turret right now.
Sorry, what?
And suddenly, we hear an ominous knock at the door. Yeah, thank you.
Marcelle, what's happening?
The door opens and a third person joins us. We lower our hoods to discover our surprise guest, Matt Wildcat.
Yeah. Hey, thank you.
Hi.
I'm happy to be here.
Hi, Matt. Welcome to the turret.
Yes. Are you ready to kill?
Oh, no, what?
Yes, that's what we have to do in the turret. But that's what we're going to do today on the podcast.
It's a murder turret?
Yes, it is a murder turret.
A murder turret. Folks, Matt, our guest, is Cree. He's a member of Ermineskin Cree Nation and grew up on Ermineskin Reserve, about an hour south of Edmonton, where I live. Well, we both live there. Mm-hmm. He's also an assistant professor and the director of Indigenous governance in the Faculty of Native Studies at the University of Alberta. Officially welcome, Matt. Hello.
Officially welcome, Matt. We're so glad to have you here in this murder turret. But will one of you please tell me why we're all wearing cloaks? I don't know what's happening.
Yes. No, well, me and Marcelle, we decided to discuss Traitors today. And so we wanted to dress the part. And you need the cloak because people can't discover your identity until we're in the murder turret.
That is exactly right. So before we get into our conversation about this particular iteration of Murder Turret reality TV, I really want to hear from both of you. Your first introduction to reality TV. How does it fit into your life? Where are you at with reality TV? What are your thoughts?
Matt, why don't you start us off?
My big introduction was Survivor. I was definitely a fan of Survivor in its early years, and then I fell off. And I think I probably went away from reality TV throughout most of my early and mid-20s. And then I started working out in Musquecheese where I grew up. And so I would spend some nights at my parents' house if I didn't want to drive all the way back to Edmonton. And they were still hooked on Survivor. And it was, it had been going on for about 10 years at that point. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize this was a thing. And I started watching with them. And then I was like right back in it. And then the last 15 years have flown by. Survivor's going on season 50 next year.
Yeah.
They do 2 a year. So it's been on for 25 years. And so I missed the chunk. But, when I started rewatching Survivor again, then I kind of slowly got into the genre of reality competition TV. And now that is my go-to if my brain can't function to find something, more productive to watch on TV. Reality competition is my go-to. And so, MasterChef, Amazing Race, the Great British Baking Show is fantastic. But yeah, I really went on a Traitors binge right around at Christmas time, New Year's, to get through that deepest, darkest part of the year.
Nothing get you through the darkest part of the year like murder.
Yes, that's right.
In a turret.
Yes.
And cloaks.
And seeing very serious adults do a murder mystery in a very serious manner, right?
Well, that is fun.
Absolutely. How about you, Hannah?
I've had a really on and off relationship with reality TV. I spent a significant chunk of my adulthood without access to a television at all. Just like the various student places that I lived, just moving a lot of places with no TV. But during my PhD, I lived with a couple who were really big reality TV fans. And so I went through this period of also getting really into reality TV with them. And they were quite sort of capacious reality TV consumers. The sort of what stands out from that era for me is both America's Next Top Model and also the Canadian, I think Much Music affiliated show Survivor Man, which I to this day find incredibly fascinating as a cultural text. Matt, have you ever seen Survivor Man?
No, I haven't, but this is the one where people get dropped in the wilderness. Is that right?
It's one guy. It's a solo project.
Yeah.
He is a cameraman, and he takes himself out into the wilderness to survive for 2 days while also filming himself. So
Yes.
it's a really interesting experiment. It's thinking about its own materiality, which obviously I love. But these days, I'm so allergic to anything even remotely stressful. Even the more recent seasons of Great British Bake Off, I'm like, we're getting a bit dramatic for me. I like those early seasons where the stakes could not be lower, where everybody's just a grandma trying to make a good scone.
Yes.
I just want it to be so gentle and so low stakes. That's what I'm after in my reality TV. There's another terrible CBC produced series called Best in Miniature.
Yes.
Which they make dollhouses.
Yes. I've been eyeing it up on CBC Gem for real. Like I'm like, that could be good.
5,000% recommend.
Okay.
It's perfect. Marcelle, what about you?
So I would say, like, I think makeover shows were the kind of reality TV that I would find weirdly comforting. Like, when I was a teenager, I really liked HGTV, like, where the neighbors would, like, swap renovating one another's houses.
Trading spaces.
Trading spaces, that's right.
Oh, and they would always, like, staple hay to each other's den walls. It was always so ugly.
So strange, right? Okay, so here's the thing. I don't have healthy television viewing habits. And so when I have something like Queer Eye, which has a limited run of like 8 episodes, I might binge it in a very unhealthy way for a couple days. Maybe, yeah, one day. But when something has like 12 to 20 episodes, if not more, I become a version of myself that I don't think is good for me, and I don't think is good for the world.
It's okay. It's just your undiagnosed ADHD.
I was thinking about this a lot when I was watching The Traitors. Like, I know how this is going to shake out. Like, I know what's about to happen, especially when it's like, who got murdered last night? We don't know, except that we kind of do. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, you guys. It's just that the way that reality TV is often filmed in this sort of like, you can't look away, even though you know exactly what's going to happen. It's not good for me. So what I'm saying is, I love it. I love it in the same way that I love chips and wine.
That's a great trifecta, actually.
Oh, I wish I was eating chips right now.
Yeah.
If you guys ever merchandise your show, that's where you should be going. It is like chips and wine goes well with reality TV.
Yeah.
Coach makes a note.
Yes.
It's time for Why This, Why Now, the segment that asks the materialist question: what are or were the historical, ideological, and material conditions for our object of study to become zeitgeisty? Marcelle, tell me what they were.
Well, this week we're talking about the reality TV sensation, The Traitors, specifically focusing on The Traitors US. Matt, this episode topic was actually your suggestion. So I would love it if you could give our listeners a general introduction to the show. Like, feel free to focus on the American version, since that's the one that you recommended that I watch first.
So it's a murder mystery, right? But, very serious adults. So the way the show works is at the beginning of the season, Alan Cummings, he chooses 3 people, or sometimes 4, who are going to become the traitors. And so the traitors, they every night get to go into the turret, the murder turret, and to kill somebody. Although they're sometimes given different choices. They can recruit, and sometimes they're not allowed to murder in the turret. They have to murder in plain sight, they call it, as well, to create suspense and drama. And then the rest of the cast, who numbers around 18 to 20 people, they're the faithful. And they're trying to find out who the traitors are. And so their mission is to figure out.
They just go to the turret.
That's why you have the cloaks.
Stop being practical. You can't go in the turret without a cloak.
That's a really great point.
I'm assuming they must have like security of some way. And so the show, every evening, the faithful, along with the traitors, do a round table and they decide who they're going to vote out. And then that person reveals whether they're a faithful or a traitor at the end of the show. And then the traitors go to the turret, they murder someone, and that's the cycle of every episode is how it runs out.
So the traitors are in a turret in cloaks. Can the viewing audience see who the traitors are? Like, do we know?
Yes, they decloak themselves every night, and you get to see their deliberations and thinking as well, right? And so part of the fun of watching the show is that you know who the traitors are, and then you're watching the faithful, and you see just like human fallibility, because it's like people have a real difficult time nailing down really suspicious behavior. You know, frankly, it's always like people are always kind of driven by like loyalties and emotions and like, but I just really like this person. Surely they're not a traitor, right? And like, you know, people just can't like kind of create these like two brains for themselves where they're like, you know, I need to like really think through suspicious behavior. At the same point, the show doesn't give a lot of opportunities where you can really nail somebody down.
Okay.
And I've like, I think I've watched like 6 seasons, and only once did I see a faithful set a trap for the traitors that got executed perfectly, and then they're able to nail that person the next day. And so like, you can imagine how many roundtables I had to sit through, like probably like 100 roundtables. And only once have I seen a faithful just like, we got him, you know?
Okay, so Matt, it's important that you know that the entirety of Traitors content I have seen is an Instagram reel of Alan Cumming on The Tonight Show talking about not being able to control his face when he thinks the faithful are making silly decisions.
Yes.
He's talking about how, like, exactly what you're talking about, like people just being lured by like the straight white man charm of this guy who's like so obviously a traitor. And when she sent me that clip, she said that that was all I needed to know about the show. Was she correct?
Yes, absolutely. In 2 ways, I think, right? So one, the first way is that Alan Cumming is actually the star of the show. The people they bring in are fantastic, you know, from the different reality TV shows. And I'm familiar with a lot of them. And it was great to, you know, see all these familiar faces. But Alan Cumming is fantastic. So like, I feel like Shaquille O'Neal, like, I didn't know your game, and I apologize for that. Alan Cumming, you're a true star, you know? That's part of the reason why that's all you needed to know about the show, is because it centers around his ability to put on the persona of the game master, you know, of organizing the game. But then, so the character who is like clearly a traitor and should have been voted out almost immediately, Boston Rob, he's really famous in the Survivor world, right? He's like, he's probably on the Mount Rushmore of Survivor, right? The Boston Rob. But it's entirely because of this like machismo, charming personality that he has, right? But the way in which he exercises his kind of like machismo energy is like in a disarming way of like, you know, like, come on, like we trust each other, right? Like, you know, I'm a straight up person. I wouldn't do you dirty like that. And then the entire time he's like, you know, doing all the faithful dirty. But it doesn't take him the whole season to figure it out, thankfully.
Great. So what I'm getting is it's Alan Cumming charmingly overseeing like a party game, right? Like Mafia or Werewolf, where it's like about sort of social interaction and figuring out who's lying. And then they, you know, at the end, somebody, or I guess some buddies, win a medium amount of money.
Yes.
Yeah. One thing to add is that if there are any traitors left at the very end, they take all the money. So even if you are a faithful and you make it all the way to the end, if you don't successfully get rid of all the traitors, you get nothing.
Yeah, sorry, that's the whole crux of the show that we should have really described.
Okay, all right.
I said this to Marcelle in one of our back and forths, is like, unfortunately, Traitors is like kind of a slow burn. Like it's the type of thing you almost want to watch if you're on your phone, you know, like scrolling Instagram, if you're in that kind of mood, right? For, you know, consuming media, because there's really not a lot going on, primarily because it's so darn difficult to catch the traitors. Like there's not a lot of opportunities to catch them by putting them in a trap in some sort of way. And so it really is, you just got to like parse apart, but it's very difficult because people have all these loyalties and these relationships and bonds that they're building up. And so it's difficult to step outside of those and then go vote somebody off who you've become quite good friends with, right? The show has the best finales of any reality show I've ever seen, because it's somebody who is like trying to play a long con, you know, and sometimes from the very beginning of the season, they're conning everyone. And if they get to the end and they're still around, they have to then tell face to face, you know, everyone thinks they're about to win, you know, a medium amount of money. And then they're like, sorry, I just won a bigger amount of money.
I get all the money and you get no money.
No money, because I've been lying to you this entire time. And you were foolish enough to believe me, which is on you primarily because my job was to lie. So,
yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
I really feel like this third season of the American version of The Traitors cemented the show into the mainstream. Like, I feel like I heard so many people talking about it. The people who participated in it were on like the late night talk shows and stuff, you know?
Yeah. The media that I consume, which is podcasts that talk about pop culture that I will not actually watch, have certainly been talking about The Traitors a lot. And while I can't promise that I'm going to watch it because see previous note about not watching things, you have convinced me that it's exciting television. What I am going to so thrillingly direct our conversation back to, though, is the material conditions.
Of course.
You know, surely in keeping with the theme of Material Girls, if we follow the money, there's some vile capitalist reason why the show is so popular.
Yes, I absolutely believe that there is. So if we're going to talk about the zeitgeistiness of The Traitors US especially, I think we have to talk about the 2023 WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes.
Hey, Marcelle, can you unpack those acronyms for me? Because I don't know if I or the listeners know what WGA and SAG-AFTRA actually stand for.
Okay, so the WGA stands for Writers Guild of America. It sounds like one union, but it's actually a term used to describe two unions, the Writers Guild of America East and the Writers Guild of America West.
Okay, and I'm going to guess that those unions are located in New York City and Los Angeles, respectively.
A great guess, Hannah. Yes, you are absolutely correct.
Yeah, I know about the two cities in America.
Both of these labor unions represent writers in film, television, radio, and online media. And it's important to note that although the two unions are separate, they negotiate contracts in unison and launch strike actions simultaneously.
What about the other one, the other acronym?
SAG-AFTRA stands for the Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. These were two separate unions until they merged in 2012.
Okay, so does the Writers Guild of America have any, are they like a reciprocal union with SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists? Do they have to strike at the same time?
That's a fantastic question. No, they don't. So the strikes of 2023 were, according to my favorite source of all time, Wikipedia.
The Encyclopedia of the People.
The free encyclopedia of the people. Those strikes were the first time that both unions struck simultaneously. I shouldn't say simultaneously, but the strikes overlapped for the first time since 1960. Yeah. So, Matt, I'm going to ask you to please read the quotation below. It's from a law blog, not a Bob Loblaw's law blog, but a regular law blog. And it is titled Post-Strike Insights, Comparing the WGA and SAG-AFTRA Agreements.
Quote, both writers and actors went on strike in 2023 after major Hollywood film and TV studios rejected their separate but similar demands. Both the WGA and the SAG-AFTRA wanted pay increases, residuals, or another type of royalty payment for reruns for projects on streaming platforms, and limits on the use of artificial intelligence. With respect to AI, writers were concerned that studios would use AI instead of hiring writers to write scripts. Actors are worried that AI would be used to replace actors with digital replicas. End quote.
Thank you so much. So these overlapping strikes had a massive impact on the entertainment industry, as I'm sure you can imagine. And that is, just to remind any listeners who are like, well, that's unfortunate. That's the point. That's the point of striking.
Yeah. Whenever people are like, oh, I support labor action, but it's awfully inconvenient. It's like,
that is, yeah.
That's actually the whole premise.
Yeah.
So although the two strikes were going on more or less at the same time, the specifics of the WGA strike are more pertinent to what we're talking about. So I'm going to focus on that one. So the WGA strike started on May 2nd, 2023, and lasted until September 27th of the same year.
Okay. Marcella, I think I remember from our episode about Twin Peaks that the fall lineup for network television is a really big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So how did the major TV networks respond to this huge work stoppage?
Another great question, Hannah. They filled their lineups with a category of television that was largely unaffected by the strikes. Matt, Hannah, any guesses as to what that category might be?
Maybe reality TV?
Oh my God, Matt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not written.
Yes.
Not written. Don't have to write a script for that.
Exactly. So reality TV fits into a category that's called unscripted television. So even though a reality show's producers might do work that's very similar to unionized writers, they aren't members of the WGA unions, and so therefore are not part of the strike action.
Mm-hmm. So would the reality TV actors, do they ever fall under the SAG-AFTRA union?
That is another excellent question. And the short answer is some. The vast majority of reality TV performers are not unionized. And according to The Hollywood Reporter's digital staff editor, Ryan Gajewski, quote, unscripted television tends to be long hours, working weekends, no health benefits, end quote. So SAG-AFTRA represents some reality performers. I'll give you a quote from the SAG-AFTRA website. Quote, depending on the structure of the production and the performers involved, end quote. And in August 2023, during those strikes, SAG-AFTRA supported the efforts of reality performers to unionize more broadly. But to my knowledge, there isn't yet a reality TV performers union.
Okay, so in 2023, the writers and actors are striking, but reality TV is mostly excluded from that strike. So we've got networks filling up their fall lineups with like unscripted, unacted reality TV.
Yes, exactly. Fall 2023, we have a reality TV saturated lineup. Ryan Gajewski, who I quoted just a moment ago, he identified the scheduling of unscripted content as 81% higher than what we saw in 2022.
That's almost double.
It's huge, right? So now we have to ask, how did this relate to the Traitors US?
Well, the second season aired in January 2024, so they must have been filming during the strike.
Yes, yes, exactly. So season 1 of The Traitors, which precedes the strikes, is a combination of reality TV performers and what gets referred to as civilians. So people with no reality TV, no celebrity background, etc. Just like regular people who they think will be good on the show. But the second season and the third seasons have been entirely cast with celebrities, the majority of whom come from reality TV shows that would have been dominating network television in the 5 months before the premiere of the second season. So by the time the Traitors US Season 2 airs in January, after the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes have ended, the show's contestants are either household names from shows like Survivor, The Challenge, Big Brother, Love Island, Real Housewives, etc.
And also, there was the former Speaker of the British Parliament. We do live in democracies after all. And that's probably about the amount of, airtime we give to democracy, right? Is like, we gotta have a little democracy, things in there. Let's get this guy.
He
Politics.
really
This is how I learned about politics.
Well, he has this famous, because other people might, order, that's, people might recognize it, right? Like, he's probably one of the most famous parliamentarians, in the English-speaking world right now.
Oh my God. Sorry, which season is that? Because I'm going to watch that one. Okay, cool.
But season 3 has a British aristocrat.
That's right, a royal. Yeah.
A Mountbatten.
Yes. And they're both very British. Like, I remember the British parliamentarian at one point, because he gets accused of breathing too heavily, and people think he must be a traitor because he's breathing too heavily. And his response is, well, I've never been a brilliant breather. Which I wish I could say that in a British accent. I can't pull it, but.
Oh my God.
Okay, well, I think actually just now, Matt, you convinced me to watch this show. But
there's a lot of gems in there, right? And so, yeah, I think it does sound quite obvious that producing a show like The Traitors, which seems very easy to just pull together, you just take them to a house. They film in a castle in the Scottish Highlands also, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certain that's why a show like this comes about, but I'm not sure if it explains its entire reason why it's famous, right? I think there is other things going on with reality TV. When you brought up Survivor Man earlier, Hannah, I was thinking the strikes explain a lot, but with reality competition TV, there's still something that draws you in, right? And also that allows you to kind of like not be super invested, but be slightly invested at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it is good TV somehow in some surprising kind of way.
Okay, well, you know what? I have some theory that I think might help us to come around and believe that I'm right.
Is it theory or is it indoctrination? Let's find out together. So this segment is called The Theory We Need, and mostly what happens in it is that Marcelle tells us about theory, and then you and I, Matt, read a bunch of quotes for her.
Mm-hmm.
And the quotes will help us understand why the Traitors is having a particular moment in this already reality-saturated market.
Okay, I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to assure you that you guys are allowed to tell me that I'm wrong, but not until I deliver my thesis in the next segment, okay?
Okay.
For this episode, I felt like I really needed to understand reality TV in order to speak intelligently about the Traitors. So I turned to a recent book on the subject. It's called Reality TV, the TV Phenomenon That Changed the World. And it's written by reader and principal lecturer at Sheffield Hallam University, Ruth A. Deller. And as you can both no doubt guess, there are so many different kinds of reality TV that I feel like I know less than I did before I read the book.
Yeah.
Deller actually suggests that we might think of reality TV as a meta-genre that encompasses multiple subgenres rather than any kind of a stable category. For example, Deller writes, quote, I would argue that reality television has about as much and as little usefulness as comparative genre terms like documentary or game show. There are almost infinite permutations of what each term means, yet they still echo something that connects with audiences in however limited capacity, end quote.
Oh, that's cool. So what does Deller tell us about the term itself?
Oh, great question, Hannah. How about you read this quote from Deller to give us a sense of what we know of the term reality TV.
Quote, it is hard to pinpoint the first use of the phrase within the TV industry or in journalistic and academic accounts of the phenomenon. Academic studies have certainly been using the term since at least the 1990s. However, it is harder to trace its origins in industry or popular discourse. For example, searching for the term in English language news database Nexus returns very few articles using the term reality television before the late 1990s, and a modest number between 1997 and 1999. And the returned results do not always use the term to indicate a genre, more to describe the ethos of an individual show. In contrast, when searching in 2000 to 2001, Nexus returns thousands of hits as the arrival of popular global formats such as the Idol franchises, Big Brother, and Survivor saw the term reality television become a common component of media culture, end quote.
Yeah. So even though a coherent definition is hard to pin down, the term has been in popular discourse since the start of the aughts. So it clearly means something. So Matt, can I ask you to read this next quote to get at what we, the people, what we mean when we say reality TV?
Quote, at the heart of all reality TV is some sort of claim to the real. However, the term real can sometimes seem to be the antithesis of what is actually involved in reality TV. Reality shows vary in what they mean by the real, and there are observational and hidden camera formats that attempt to show people naturally going about their daily lives, for example, but there are also shows that place people in contrived situations that may be very different from their ordinary life. In a format like, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here, the focus is on the real people behind the celebrity facade. They do not really live in the jungle and eat bugs, but the show uses these testing situations to reveal their emotions, personalities, makeup-free faces, and other aspects of the real person, end quote.
Thank you so much. Matt, you did such a great job with that quote. I'm going to give you one more.
Okay, yeah.
And in this one, Deller is quoting or drawing from another reality TV scholar, Jonathan Bignell.
Quote, according to Bignell, one of the chief points of reality TV is for people to reveal themselves to each other and to the audience, to establish a structure of feeling that the television audience can share and adduce to understandings of foibles, embarrassments, and triumphs of the participants, who are most often presented as familiar and ordinary, end quote.
Thank you so much. Okay, so something that struck me about Deller's use of Bignell there, Matt, really reminded me of our email exchange when I was asking you to tell me, like, what got you into the Traitors in the first place. And you talked about being particularly into the reality competition genre. So I wish that this was the last quote that I force you to read, but it won't be. But this is actually your words. I'm going to get you to read what you wrote to me.
Okay, quote. The shows I've gotten into over the years have been Survivor, Amazing Race, The Challenge, MasterChef, and The Great British Bake Off. The competition part is key, but the narrative and personality of the genre is also great. It's always fun to watch interesting, good-looking people, but in the competition format, people are always in a state of excavating their sense of self and sources of self-worth. And over the course, there are moments of joy when you watch people win as well. End quote.
Beautiful.
Oh, excavating their sense of self. Matt, that's poetry.
I know. I absolutely love that description. And I want to use this to pivot to the format used specifically in the Traitors US seasons 2 and 3, because season 1 was a combination of civilian and reality, but the players in season 2 and 3 were exclusively celebrities, meaning reality performers and like D-list celebrities.
And British parliamentarians.
Yes.
And minor aristocrats.
Yes, precisely. So I was really curious about how Deller theorizes celebrity in relation to reality TV specifically. And you know what? She did not disappoint.
Oh, incredible.
She has developed what she calls the fame cycle. So we've talked about celebrity in episodes before, but always in relation to like what we might call stars.
Yeah, star studies is what Anne Helen Peterson calls it. Like where you sort of examine the star persona of a particular celebrity.
Yes, exactly. We haven't talked about celebrity in the confines of like, I did a thing and I kind of became famous for doing that one thing and now I do that thing a lot.
Yeah.
So Deller has developed what she calls the fame cycle in order to think about celebrity as a process. So Hannah, could you please read this next quotation for me?
With relish, quote, I think it can also be useful to think about celebrity status as a process. By this, I mean that there are stages to being famous. There is not one simple state of being a celebrity, rather a series of statuses and roles that celebrities occupy that both determine and are determined by the area of their fame and the practices of celebrity that they engage in. I find it helpful to visualize this process as a cycle with several stages of celebrity, from before someone achieves fame to after that fame has waned, end quote.
Thank you.
I want an app that tracks my fame cycle for me. So I know when I'm about to fame menstruate.
I think that might be the nexus, right? Like how often you appear in the search engine results.
It's my H-index.
So Deller also makes clear that celebrities may participate in reality TV at any stage of their celebrity cycle. So a classic example might be like Gwen Stefani acting as a judge on a show like The Voice, right?
Yeah.
But I am particularly interested in a special category that Deller reserves for, quote, celebrities who make a living as reality television stars and spend their time going from one show to another, end quote. So she calls this the pro-reality celebrity. This is the main category of celebrity cast in seasons 2 and 3 of The Traitors. So, Matt, can I get you to please read this next quotation? It's how she describes this particular casting dynamic. And this quotation is so long, I apologize in advance.
Quote, when a celebrity reality program works, it is not only beneficial for its stars, whether in terms of income, exposure, a life-changing experience, or new career opportunities, but also offers plenty of enjoyment for audiences. It offers viewers a range of interesting narratives, conflict between participants, discussions about the nature of fame, both its attractions and its problems, and the conflicting dynamics of the ordinary and the special, of the talented and the talentless. On the one hand, such programming aims to uncover extra levels of extraordinary talent among existing television personalities, often as a cross-promotional device for the same network, all the while reinforcing audience empathy with the star's ordinary human struggles to overcome new challenges. On the other hand, audiences are given additional opportunities for what Jeffrey Sconce calls celebrity schadenfreude, in which we get to spectate as minor stars of questionable talent make fools of themselves, disproving any claim to extraordinary status. End quote.
Thank you so much. Okay, what do we think? Huh? Am I right?
Listen, Marcelle, before you ask us if you're right, or technically after you ask us if you're right, we need a thesis.
Okay, well, God, I was up late writing the script, so I sure hope that I remembered to do one last night.
I'm scrolling down, and there is one here.
Did I?
We're good.
We're
goodness.
Good. Okay. Because it wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last.
Woo! We have made it to the final round, and now Marcelle will deliver a thesis proving once and for all if she's a faithful researcher or a traitorous procrastinator.
In researching this episode, I couldn't help but notice a conspicuous shift in casting for the Traitors US. As noted earlier, the first season's players were a mix of civilians and what Deller would call pro-reality celebrities. The second season, however, was entirely cast with both minor and pro-reality celebrities. This shift ensured an increase in the number of high-drama personal relationships between reality alumni, like the Challenge alumni CT and Trishelle, or Survivor alumni Parvati and Sandra, and factions based on reality circuit experience, dividing performers known as gamers who came from reality competition shows like Big Brother, from voting blocks formed around networks like the Bravo Girls or franchises like the Housewives. This shift was even more pronounced in Season 3, when the Traitors US added 3 veteran gamers a day into the competition, and it seemed like every cast member knew them already by reputation. Pro-reality celebrity thus played an increasingly important role in the casting choices for each subsequent season of the Traitors US. We can't ignore, then, that these casting choices benefited enormously from the fall 2023 primetime television lineup that was nothing short of saturated with reality programming. Major networks responded to the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes by leaning heavily on what's called unscripted or reality television to fill the gaps left by striking writers and actors. Television audiences were thus primed for the Traitors US to introduce its glamorous second season, promising fewer tears and way more drama. The Traitors franchise may well be becoming the gold standard of reality TV, but is this perhaps a distraction from the reality of non-unionized labor? In this essay, I will argue...
Can't we just enjoy the show and not think about it?
Why you always got to be talking about the material conditions of production, Marcelle?
Touche, Matt. Touche. Let's just enjoy things.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know what? For me too, I'm assuming the listeners of your show, part of this is because, your brain doesn't turn off, right? And you're always considering these circuits of power and, desire, I think, frankly. And I can enjoy all of these things and at the same time have all these reservations about them as well, I think, right? And so, I went to the Oilers game on the weekend, and that is for me is prime time of something I so deeply enjoy, and then I'm so deeply am troubled by in all these other sorts of ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Starting with the team name.
Yeah. It's even worse because it was a 4 or 5 year stretch, but they had a land acknowledgement at the beginning of the game. And the person delivering the land acknowledgement was actually my next door neighbor growing up, Dr. and Chief Wilton Littlechild, he was a co-commissioner of the Truth and Reconciliation in Canada.
Wow.
And, the land acknowledgement was great. But what I really liked about that land acknowledgement was that it was a recognizable Indigenous person on the screen who everyone knew, right? And there was a celebrity moment there involved. I'm like, you know what? Everyone in Alberta should know at least one famous Native person. It was a kind of for me, a thing of it. and they've taken it away this season. And
No way.
they have other Indigenous content in the game. Like they have a pretty cool video that they show in the intermissions, but that's when everyone is up and, going to the washroom and getting their beers and stuff like that, right? It's like such a demotion in the level of prominence within the game that it, I frankly, as like it has been found deeply troubling for me.
Does Chief Littlechild still have seats?
So actually, so my parents share season seats with Willie Littlechild. Yeah. So this is like, I won't deny that I'm like a bougie Cree. Like there's no way.
And we were all thinking it.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah. I have all these relationships with Willie, and so like the personal is brought into it as well. But just like thinking through, I'll call it like with the canceling of EDI. Some of these, like it was already kind of underway, right? Before like it's become like full blown now in these last couple of months. But like maybe we should talk about Traitors again here. But for some reason I was, these like kind of being torn between like your desires and your, the critical brain, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong, right? Like there is a relationship there between like the satisfaction of seeing public recognition for something and someone who matters. And then also at the same time being like, but if we like sit with the politics of what's happening, it stops feeling good.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of other ambivalences whenever we look at sort of non-traditional approaches to celebrity. This sort of recurring conversation about like genres or media that reduce gatekeeping, which, lead to a kind of like I was listening to a podcast the other day where the two guests were arguing that we need movie stars for the film industry to operate, and that we have lost the structure of the movie star because of the fragmentation of the celebrity landscape. And they're like, well, we need movie stars. And I was like, oh yeah, that's sort of for me a similar argument to like, well, we need authorities to navigate this like post-truth landscape. And I'm like, I don't know if reverting to these old hierarchies is always gonna fix our problems. But when I think about the sort of transformation and expansion of modes of celebrity, I also think about like who's now gaining access to celebrity who would not have gained access to celebrity otherwise, right? Like there's this kind of almost randomness to how some, like particularly via the gameplay, like the reality competition shows, there's this way that people can become celebrities whose identity might have precluded them from access to the higher echelons of their industries, right? Like, women of color coming up through the Great British Bake Off.
Right.
In season 1 of Traitors, like Siri Fields is like, she plays the entire show, right? And that's all I'll say about it. But she is like a star, but she's also like a very well known in the Survivor world because she's considered the greatest player never to have won the game, right? And I was just rewatching this actually recently. The first 40 seasons, they did a recap of like the greatest Survivor moments of all time. They only go over about a dozen kind of incidents, and she's in like at least 2 of them. From what I've heard, she might have been in 3 of them, right? So she is like a true star of the game.
And yet she still wanted to win that $250,000, right? So even stardom in the Survivor world, she's still hungry for 250 grand.
No, she's still a nurse. Yeah, she has her day job still,
She's got a real life.
Yeah.
It's like that's still money that would make a difference. Do you think that they're getting actually paid to be on the show in addition to the prize?
Some of them have to get appearance fees. Like
they've got to be, right? Because like Bob the drag queen was on a season. Like Bob's not working for free.
Yes. No, exactly. Yeah. And same thing with the, the Survivor stars. Like, and in fact, some of them, there's been 2 seasons in Survivor where they've brought back former contestants just to be a part of the show and not play in the show. Like they had one where Sandra, who's considered like, if not the greatest, one of the greatest of all time. She's one of only 2 people to have won the show twice.
Yeah.
They brought her and Boston Rob one season to just have all these like counseling mentorship sessions with contestants throughout the show, and the contestants would come and then they would like tell them how to play the game, right? And it sounds so cheesy, but it kind of worked, and it was interesting to see them with the way in which their brain works, because it's like again, Survivor is really good at doing this. And, Traitors does this well to a certain extent, but it's like people have to articulate a philosophy of how they're approaching the game, right? And so it's interesting to see in which how people try to think through the challenge that's put in front of them.
It's such an interesting specific feature of reality competition TV and the kinds of attachments, like parasocial attachments to those celebrities.
Yeah.
That's distinct from a lot of other kinds of celebrity, because it's like, I've grown attached to this person by watching them be really good at doing an extremely specific thing. And that extremely specific thing was not necessarily already an entertainment thing, right? So it's not like, so you think you can dance, where like I'm attached to this person because I'm watching them be a really good dancer. Like, dancing is already a form of entertainment through which somebody might become a celebrity. But the idea of like, I have watched somebody play Survivor so well that I am now attached to them because of how good they are at Survivor, the game, like that feels like a distinct kind of parasocial relationship to me.
Just to build on Sandra's reputation a little bit, right? So like her first season she won was a regular season, but then she won an all-star season. And it was probably like, one of the greatest casts ever assembled. Like all 20 players are like really, really strong players. And, and she just like, by the end, it was obvious that she was the winner. And she was able to control the game without anyone realizing that she controlled the game. Like it was just brilliant, skillful, masterful stuff, right? And then now her daughter is also a reality TV star and like has competed in Survivor Australia. But then there was this was such a fringe show I watched. I think it was called The Anonymous over Christmas break as well. It was not good. I wouldn't recommend it. But Sandra's daughter is in that show and wins the show, right? And so it's like, clearly this family has a particular skill set of reality competition because they keep replicating success. Like it seems undeniable, right?
So funny.
Okay.
Nepo reality TV, baby.
But what I think is so remarkable about the Traitors is that previous gaming experience does not necessarily lead to success in the Traitors.
So like the Bravo stars might beat the gamers?
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's a social game.
Because it's a social game.
And they might not have won Survivor, but they're very good at navigating sociability.
That's right. And two, the players, not only are they doing a murder mystery, they also have to do competitions as well.
Oh.
So they have to do like feats of strength, feats of endurance, solving puzzles. Like they have to do all kinds. It's like such a fascinating mashup of like all these different kinds of reality television programming all blended together in like what's ultimately a murder mystery game.
That's how they win money for the prize pot. So they don't get the money off the bat. They have to go earn it.
That's right.
They have to fill the prize pot?
They have to fill the prize pot.
Capitalism is so rude.
I know.
I've been abducted to a mysterious castle in the Highlands by an eccentric Scottish
queer
homosexual.
Yes. Yeah.
And
famously bisexual. Anna.
I'm so sorry. By an eccentric Scottish bisexual. And he's not fronting the money himself.
No. In fact,
sell one of your suits of armor.
In fact, something that's really funny, he refers to it as his castle. And so silly me, knowing nothing, I was under the impression that this was indeed Alan Cumming doesn't own a castle until
he's no Enya.
Until I read that they use the same castle for both the American and the British sets. It's not his.
Who's the Alan Cumming in the British one?
I don't even know her name, but she's quite effective as well.
Right.
Not nearly to the same way. But then in the Canadian version, unfortunately, the host tries to put on this exact same persona of like this kind of mysterious, but also silly, fun-loving character, and it just is a complete flop. Like, the Canadian one is
We're
like
such an embarrassing country.
Yes, yeah. It's not a good television program.
I want to end with this question. I want to know. I have not watched the show, so I cannot say for myself. But Matt and Marcelle, I want to know how good you think you would be on the Traitors.
I'd be a fucking disaster.
You'd be like, where's Trevor? He did it.
Yeah. I love competition. So of course I would like to be good. And I think I would actually be good. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And you need that $250,000 to support your sweater habit.
That's so funny. I was thinking like, I'll take the money and use it to go on a really fancy vacation.
Oh, yeah.
Not that the show would be the vacation. No, that would be work. I'd be working there. Yeah, I'm laboring.
Okay, so I don't know if I'd be any good, but for folks who have watched the show, I would like you to tell me in the form of a poll if you think that I would be any good at the Traitors. You can decide for me. Coach has informed us that there's a poll function on Spotify where you can vote on this, and it will be decisive. Whatever you decide will be the reality going forward.
That's true.
So check out that poll on Spotify.
Beautiful.
Material Girls is a Witch Please production and is distributed by Acast. It may not be a castle in the Scottish countryside, but our website, owitchplease.ca, has plenty for you to explore, and famously, a murder turret. Wander the halls for transcripts, reading lists, and merch, and look out for secret passageways leading to our other shows. Gender Playground, a podcast about gender-affirming care for kids, and Making Worlds, a video podcast about sci-fi, fantasy, and the radical power of imagining otherwise.
Looking for evidence that we're faithfuls through and through? Check out our excellent newsletter at owitchplease.substack.com or visit patreon.com/owitchplease to decipher clues in our excellent bonus content. We're also on Instagram and Threads at owitchplease and on TikTok at owitchpleasepod. Matt, where can the people learn more about you and your work and whether you are indeed a faithful or a treacherous traitor?
Spot on.
Yeah, good impression there, Marcelle. I have a website that's in desperate need of updating, mattwildcat.ca, but it does have a link to a lot of the other podcasts I've been a part of over the years, talking about Indigenous issues in all sorts of ways. I have I think a particularly good one for a general audience on treaty called Your Forest podcast, where I went in and talked. And that one is really like a general audience. Speaking of the white men, bringing back white men into the audience from earlier, if you have a white man who's really struggling to understand Indigenous sovereignty, that's who I'm really trying to hit with that podcast. And so it really goes to a general audience. I had a plumber who came and helped me one time. He wanted to know what I was all about, and I gave that to him. And apparently he works with my sister-in-law, and he went to the office the next week and he's like, man, that guy is smart.
Oh, nice.
So and he is like a total, kind of Trump voter type of person, right? And so, that's a good one for a general audience. I also have an article I'm really proud of on Indigenous relationality. I know for those of you who are in the academic world, relationality is a big thing. And if you want to learn about Indigenous relationality, and there, me and my co-author, Daniel Voss, we really focus on what it means to think about centering relationships as a form of critical thinking, right? So it's not always about relationships as being like producing good or happy, people, but relationships force us to confront what does it mean to think through relationships when we're confronting hard problems around scarcity, decisions where it's not obvious what the right outcome is. And I think there's a lot from Indigenous worldviews, but for me in particular, Cree worldview, Nehiyel worldview, about like how we center relationships in order to do critical thinking.
Awesome.
Matt, I'm going to go read that article right away.
That's true because Hannah's in their office right now.
I'm in my office.
Work.
I will be happy to talk about it with you further.
Yeah.
I will take you up on that. Okay. Our show is produced by the always iconically dressed Hannah Rehack, aka Coach, currently wearing 7 cloaks. Thanks to the whole iconic Witch Please Productions team, Gabby Iori, Zoe Mix, Malika Gampankum, and Ruth Ormiston. And thanks to Auto Syndicate for the use of our theme song, Shopping Mall.
At the end of every episode, we will thank all our new Patreon faithfuls and every member who has boosted their tier. Thanks to your support, we are all winners.
And we'll be dividing the money between the following people.
Okay, this list might be a little longer than usual. That's because we're recording during our Patreon push. So when I say we're all winners, I really mean we are all winners. Thank you so much. Our enormous gratitude goes out to the following new faithfuls: Lena H., Ann B., Lena S., Anselm B., Caroline H., W., so mysterious, Sunny I., Jessica F., Joanna B., Hemani C., Beth, Nicole P., Julia MK, Amy, Jessica B., and Anne V.
We'll be back soon with a whole new challenge. It's going to be a feat of strength. But until then,
Later, Traitors.